Hello fellow film enthusiasts, my name is Christina and welcome to another Let's Get Reelz movie review. Today is my segment I like to call What's on Netflix, where I tell you what's on Netflix that maybe you've never heard of and that you should check out, that I think you would like to see. Today's movie I'm going to be reviewing for you is called The Young Victoria, starring Emily Blunt. The movie is about the young Queen Victoria of England. She was a very, very fascinating woman. This just shows you the beginnings of this queen and this monarch who, before Queen Elizabeth, one of her descendants, became the longest running monarch. Victoria had reigned for a really long time, for decades, and she was a pretty interesting character when she became older, but this talks about how she came to the throne and how she met Prince Albert, who was like the love of her life. And if you know anything about Queen Victoria, you will know probably that after Albert's death, she wore black for the rest of her life. She like obsessively mourned him, and this is just before all that. This just shows her coming into power, dealing with her manipulative mother and this guy that her mother had been with, because Victoria's father had died, but Sir John, I think his name was, and he was just incredibly controlling. He wanted Victoria's uncle, who was the king at the time, to sign a regency because Victoria was so young and her uncle was so old that she was just too young to take over the throne, and this guy that her mother was with just wanted control, and her mother wanted control, and Victoria was like, get the hell out of here, I'm not signing that. And it shows her breaking away, becoming queen, breaking away from her mother, and just really beginning to like assert herself, doing what she wanted. And then also, like, when Albert comes into the picture after they marry, she has to do like a give and take. If you guys have seen The Crown, you'll see that Philip wanted, some kind of control over something. Elizabeth wasn't giving him anything to do. He felt very cut off from things, and he just wasn't given anything to do. He was idle, and that's what happened with Albert. He was like bored. He was getting angsty. So Victoria finally let him run the household and do things, take over finances. Interesting things like that. And what was interesting to see, I didn't really know, and of course this is a movie, so they don't go into great detail, but I didn't realize how much of like pawns these two were in the game of royalty. I believe Victoria's father was the brother to the king, and then Albert and Victoria were cousins, and their uncle Leopold, who was king of the Belgians, and Albert lived with Leopold, and Leopold was trying to get Albert and Victoria to marry so the British could help the Belgians. I don't know, it was such a big mess. I don't really delve into that far history, like I haven't yet, and it's all very confusing to me. But that was like just really interesting to see how much they were pawns, and they do discuss it in the movie, how they felt like they were chess pieces. And it's kind of sad to see, because Victoria really wanted to be an intellectual. She wanted to be the strong person. She believed she could be. And then Albert came along and he's like, you are smart, you are tough, you do know what you're doing. And he genuinely loved her, she genuinely loved him, and it was a very interesting pair. They really, really did love each other. It was like, it's one of the greatest love stories in history, I think. And that's because they did love each other so much. That's what led Victoria to mourning Albert for the rest of her life after he died. They were married, I think, for 20 years, or they ruled together for 20 years, and then he died. He got really sick and he died. They had 9 kids together, and it was very sad to know that these two were just so in love, and then he dies, and then she goes a little like off the deep end after that. I really like the cast of The Young Victoria. Emily Blunt was perfect. I love Emily Blunt so much. I really think the woman is like so versatile in whatever she can do. She plays Queen Victoria, but then you go and watch Edge of Tomorrow and she's like this gun-wielding, kick-ass person, and it's just like, oh my god, like she becomes your idol. And then she goes into doing Into the Woods, and she's singing and like really good, and she's doing all this musical stuff. I just think that's fascinating that she's so versatile in that way. and very, very good, like very believable as a young Queen Victoria. And I'm not familiar with the rest of the cast, but I did like them. I will give a shout out to Michelle Huseman. I still don't know how to pronounce that man's name. He is Dario in Game of Thrones, but to me, he will always be Cal Morrison from Orphan Black. I had actually seen this movie years before I watched Orphan Black, and I never realized he was in that movie. So I saw Michelle Huseman in The Young Victoria before Orphan Black. Love him, and he wasn't in this movie too much. Just liked him anyway. He was in it. He came on the screen. I was like, yes, this is what I like right here. So that was my review of The Young Victoria, which is on Netflix. Highly suggest you guys go and watch this. If you guys are an Anglophile like me, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Just take it with a bit of a grain of salt, because this is a movie based on history, but they do take some license. There is a scene where there's assassination attempt on Victoria and Albert gets hurt. That didn't really happen. But anyway, besides that, good movie. Go watch it, especially if you're an Anglophile. As I said, if you liked this review in any way, please give it a thumbs up. If you have seen The Young Victoria, leave them in the comments there. What did you like about the movie? You know, if you are interested in learning about Victoria and Albert, or just Queen Victoria in general, leave them there. Let's discuss. And if you guys have any movie suggestions, also leave those in the comments. And if I pick your movie that's either on Netflix or not, if I pick your movie and I watch it and I review it, I'll give you a shout out. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for future Let's Get Reels and What's on Netflix reviews, because that is what I like to do here. And as always, keep watching movies and stay absolutely fabulous.